Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias the Guy. Well, Chrystia Freeland is walking out of cabinet. She's keeping her chair. She's not quitting. There's going to be no election. Instead, they're appointing her to the worst possible position that Ukraine could possibly want or need, let alone Canada. Now, if you're a longtime subscriber of my show, you already know that her grandfather is the reason my family fled Ukraine and why, well, a whole pile of my other family are buried somewhere in the hills. Her grandfather, media just doesn't do their job. So I'm going to do it for them. So please like, share, and subscribe. Hey, we're going to kind of go over the announcement here today, and then I'm literally just going to break down who she really is. Like you've really got to understand this person. She is literally a walking embodiment of her grandfather, using all of the knowledge that then fascist party, the Nazi party, used in order to take power and force people against their will to do things they knew were morally wrong. Sound familiar? Like in Canada? To force businesses that don't cooperate to shut down unless you follow through with what they think is right. Sound familiar, Canada? To push books that have no right to be even taught to young children. And then when somebody stands up and says, hey, that's pornography, or that's teaching them something they shouldn't be learning, that's a book ban. Sound familiar, Canada? I have to apologize. I'm really having a hard time. I'm so disgusted at what is going on in Canada. And then you add this and the lack of media. The fact that this person has been elected how many times? I think this is her 5th. Because propaganda refuses to tell Canadians who they really are. And it's not hard. Well, now it is, because Canadian censorship laws make it even more difficult. But I have terabytes of information that I've been scrubbing, copying, pasting, and saving as, I shouldn't say scrubbing, just copying and pasting and saving, because I've been watching our government with the help of Google and all these other search engines who are following their lead. Elbows up! Or is it like this, or is it like this? It's all the same. It's that propaganda. I can literally take Carney's speeches and run them right beside Hitler's speeches. Break them down and show you how the Liberal Party uses the exact same fear, hate, and division in order to get votes and take power. And the strongest arm of any socialist, communist, fascist government is propaganda. This is why the censorship laws they put in are so important to them. This is why media, all on the payroll, part of CRTC. There's a Russian name for that. Or sorry, a German Nazi name for that. Won't say anything about it. This is disgusting. Let's break this down. Like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you so much information here, people. I need you to like, share, and subscribe. Get these documents out. Make sure not only, well, most of the world already knows who Chrystia Freeland is. But let's make sure they know the truth. Let's break down the propaganda first. Disgusting. Unbelievable.
It's great to have you listen from across the country on this Tuesday, and a big change coming to the federal government. Chrystia Freeland has officially resigned from cabinet. She served in key portfolios: finance, foreign affairs, handling the trade file between Canada and the United States under both Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney. She has now left cabinet. She's set to become a special envoy on Ukraine. Freeland is of Ukrainian descent. She's been very outspoken in condemning Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, singling out Vladimir Putin numerous times. In fact, she was banned and sanctioned by Russia years ago. However, some of her comments comes as Prime Minister Mark Carney has promised deeper Canadian involvement in trying to stop the war. We are expecting to hear from Freeland later this afternoon, but she did release a statement, and I'm going to read some of it to you in this photo that was just sent out of her and Mark Carney, basically saying, "I am forever grateful to my constituents for trusting and electing me 5 times, and I would like to thank Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Trudeau for the privilege of serving in their cabinets over the last decade." She also says she does not intend to run in the next federal election. So what we know right now, she is leaving cabinet, but will stay on as a Liberal MP representing a very, very strong Liberal riding in downtown Toronto. She'll continue to represent that riding, at least for now. We're going to get more details on what her new role will be, but an extensive message from Freeland talking a little bit about what she has done over the 12 years that she has been in elected office. Let's bring in CTV's Colton Prale, who is standing by with more on this story. And Colton,
what has she done? Well, she's part of the new cult Liberal Party, the Fascist Party, and trust me, I can say this legitimately. All you have to do is literally watch my program and read all the evidence that I constantly post in the description. She has been trained her entire... Now, this is my opinion because I've studied propaganda for decades. Because of my heritage, and it's not just Ukraine, there's a lot that makes me who I am. And most of them have been persecuted in some way or fashion. The Ukrainian part really pisses me off. Because I've known since I was a young lad, in Edmonton, mind you, about how Canada supported, hid, and helped Nazis. Hell, I had to walk by a few, cenotaphs celebrating the people who at that time I didn't know were responsible for my family's demise. The ones that are left buried in unmarked graves, real unmarked graves. So let's break down a little wee bit of Chrystia Freeland. Young. What does she do? Follows right in her grandfather's footsteps. Who's her grandfather? Well, see, this is where media is completely silent and has denied it and called it Russian propaganda. It's not true. Well, lo and behold, I found out through my family heritage when I started getting older and really looking into what was happening and what had happened. I found this name. Michael Chomiak was literally the head of the propaganda outlet who tried every way possible until he finally got into the Nazi Party to help the Nazi Party to spread Nazi propaganda. Now, there's a lot going on back then, of course, Stalin and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And there's a lot of mismatch. So, I'm going to post, again, the best documentary, if you want to know the history of Ukraine, below. It's called Ukraine on Fire. I urge you to watch this documentary. It'll blow your mind. Now, most of my subscribers have already watched this. If you're new, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And check out previous episodes. I always put all the links to all of the evidence in the descriptions below. So, Michael Chomiak, born in blah blah blah, Strenotium, part of Austria-Hungary, blah 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 blah. He studied at the Kurzmaz University, blah 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 blah, Academy of Foreign Trade, blah 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 blah. It goes on and it goes on and it goes on. Chomiak changed his name to Michael Chomiak when he emigrated to Canada after World War II. After his death in 1984, his son-in-law John Paul Himka accessed his papers, which are now held in the Provincial Archives of Alberta. According to Himka, the anti-Jewish materials published in the Krirakas Vista contributed to the mass murder of Jews. Now, my ancestors weren't Jewish. No. They were Orthodox. You would call it, Russian Orthodox? Watch the documentary and you'll see. There's a lot of the different Orthodox parts of it, but because they were, we'll call it a mixed family, Bolsheviks and Ukrainian, bad to do together. Some Russians and Ukrainians should never marry. There was a deep hate. They had their own issues of racial tensions. And it was more of a language tension that has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Chomiak is deeply embedded into this belief. Even though, if you go back a few hundred years, you're all the same damn people, somehow, some little twist in the way you talked changed and everybody else should be eliminated. Like, my ancestors. One, because, well, they weren't of perfect Ukrainian descent. And the other one because, well, you can't be perfect because you married somebody who isn't perfect. You all must go. Yes. This man was evil. He's responsible because he led the propaganda. He is what drove the people, kind of like what we saw just happen to Charlie Kirk. He drove the people through lies and fabrication, manipulation of the airwaves and the newspapers into believing lies, causing fear, hate, and division. And then you get those few people who don't mind, being violent and doing very nasty things, to rise up and start doing those nasty things. And then what do? They promote those nasty things. Kind of like what we're seeing happening here, where they go and they use propaganda outlets to purposely discredit the people who were executed and not quite praise the people who did it, but definitely not put the blame and onus on where it belongs. No. She's learnt from a young age how to do this. And she's had a goal since a young age on what she wanted to do. She wanted to fulfill the same things her grandfather did. Now, it's an opinion, yes, but I'm going to show you the evidence that I know. And there's a lot more to it, and it's not hard to find if you know what you're looking for. KGB archives. The materials show what drew the Soviet intelligence service's attention to the then troublesome young Canadian, who was the subject of documents in the Soviet press and even warranted a feature in top secret KGB documents. Now, depending on where you read this, if it has any relation to any of the media outlets, they will praise her and say, oh, they liked her. No. They knew she was trained. They knew she was trained, people. At a young age, she was using the same type of tactics that a lot of the KGB and other secret services around the world were teaching to their spies on how to find information, spread disinformation, divide and conquer, to steal information. Think everything a spy would do. She did, and she did very well, which left the KGB in a conundrum. I will read. In articles bearing titles like Abuse of Hospitality, Soviet newspapers publicly lambasted the Canadian visitor for recklessly meddling in the Soviet Union's affairs with malice aforethought. What business, asked the Kiev newspaper Prava Ukraini, did someone from Edmonton have leading a civic organization for the preservation of the Ukrainian language in Ukraine? Why did someone in Ukraine to study Ukrainian spend so little time doing so at the university sponsoring her visit? And why study when, as the televised rallies at which she spoke time and time again clearly showed, she spoke the language flawlessly? Now, her parents were into politics. She somehow got these really good scholarships to go to certain universities where she studied Russian history, Ukrainian language. She spoke it. Why did she need to? Do you see where this is going? This is what spies do. And in this case, in my opinion, even Pravda, the official broadsheet of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, condemned her by name and others like her for their efforts to tear Ukraine away from the USSR. Ms. Freeland, in a written statement to the Globe and Mail, said, "I am aware of my work with pro-democracy and environmental activists invoked the ire of Soviet KGB. I remember being the target of smear campaigns in the Soviet press." Now, she said this one a couple of times when she was confronted about her grandfather being a Nazi propagandist. And she said, those are lies. Those are lies. In fact, our media helped push those lies. I'm going to debunk them today. And I'm going to give you so much information and proof, your head's going to spin. Though I was eventually forced to leave the country, I have no regrets about my time in Ukraine during the Soviet period. Out of this experience, what struck me very powerfully was how quickly a rotten political system could collapse, and how important the work of brave dissidents could be. Oh. Doesn't that sound like I'll let your brains put this together. Ms. Freeland was part of a flood of tourists, activists, missionaries, students, and even historians purporting to work in the archives, but suspected by authorities, including the KGB, of having ulterior motives, visiting the Soviet Union during its final years. But she is unique in having become a top-secret published case study for the KGB in just how much damage one determined foreigner could do to the USSR as they knew it. The Soviet Union state media tended to adopt breathless style when exposing what it saw as the wicked machinations of foreigners like Miss Freeland. However, the KGB's Colonel Estroy, based in Kiev, dispensed with the feigned indignance of his report on the woman, giving him so much grief in the pages of the Spronglik KGB SSSR Digest of the KGB's top secret in-house journal. Miss Freeland and her ilk were a threat to the Soviet Union, but one which had to be handled delicately. Treating her too harshly could give credence to the libellous stories told in the Ukrainian emigre communities about how the KGB treated national minorities in the Soviet Union. According to the KGB, Ms. Freeland was more than just an agitator, for as Colonel Stroy derisively put it, the liberation of Ukraine, who coerced Soviet citizens into staging marches and rallies to attract Western support. She delivered cash, video and audio recording equipment, and even a personal computer to her contacts in Ukraine. all of this is they have empirical evidence on all of this. All of it. Ukraine, I urge you, watch the documentary Ukraine on Fire that I attached, and you'll understand. Ukraine has divisions within itself that has been going on since Hitler. It started way before. It has never had a chance to heal. We've never given it a chance because we have people like this who are part of this belief system, who have an agenda. It's not a nice agenda, people. As far as she's concerned, if this was back when her grandfather was alive, she would be doing the exact same thing as he did, because she's doing it today, just in a different manner, because it's not socially acceptable. But trust me, she's had a large part of what is going on in Ukraine. It happened under their watch. They want this war. And again, previous episodes, her name is on that list. I ain't going to show it to you because it gives you all of her personal information. And I'm not going to dox her. I don't want any violence against her. I do not believe in that. But I do believe that there are laws made that are not being implemented. And this goes all the way back generations to why this party still hasn't shown and exposed all of the Nazis that Canada has protected. Why? Why are so many generations not given their due, their right to have the people who decimated their families, took their monies, destroyed their countries, held accountable? How come there is no justice for us? Why did my grandparents, great-grandparents pass away never having justice? And yet their grandparents and great-grandparents come across with the monies they robbed from our families to start wealthy farms and businesses. It's a disgrace. All this took place under the watchful eye of the KGB, which surveilled Mrs. Freeland's. Its officers tailed her wherever she went, tapped her phone calls to the Ukrainians abroad, bugged her accommodations, read her mail, and had an informer, Indemnid Slav, insert himself into Miss Freeland's circle to gain the young Canadian's trust. But Miss Freeland knew the rules of the road. She used a Canadian diplomat at the embassy of Moscow, known to the KGB as Bison, and suspected of being a spy, to send material abroad in diplomatic pouch that could not be intercepted or read. Nazis in Canada, people. How did this person get onto the enclave and diplomatic community? Oh, where's Chrystia Freeland going? Right. She increasingly avoided major gatherings, lest her participation drew too much attention to her, and the Soviet secret police's subtler attempts to curtail her activities failed. Her teacher at Kiev's Tereshchevarsky University on the KGB orders increased her workload, but the student, ostensibly on a visa to study Ukrainian, was so fluent that she did not need to attend class in the first place in order to make grades, much to the KGB's chagrin. Are you following me, people? Instead, she spent her time traversing Ukraine, purporting to visit far-flung family members, but in fact, working as a fixer for visiting journalists from Canada, Britain, and the United States. For example, taking a BBC film crew to Lviv to meet leaders in the Ukrainian Catholic Church. Countless tenuous news stories about life in the Soviet Union, especially from its non-Russian citizens, had her fingerprints, as Miss Freeland set about making a name for herself in journalistic circles with an eye to her future career prospects. Colonel Stroy certainly objected to what Miss Freeland was doing in Ukraine, but the KGB officer could not help but be impressed. She was a remarkable individual with an analytical mindset. The young Canadian was erudite erudite, sociable, persistent, and inventive in achieving her goals, nefarious as they may have been in the eyes of Soviet intelligence. See, this is what propaganda does. They'll tell you, oh, she was the Irish. Like they were blown away by her. Yes, it wasn't that they were just blown away. They knew she was trained, people. They knew she was a spy. They knew who her grandfather was. They knew. In the meantime, Canada? Crickets. Nazis in Canada. Now, I'm going to post this. I urge you, read it in its entirety. I got a lot to cover here. A lot to cover. Now, I'm still surprised at how many people don't know that there was a Nazi in Parliament. I was sick that day. I puked. I watched it live. I watched these live. I have since I was a teenager. This is what I watch. I'm interested in politics. I'm into history. I'm into propaganda. I watched this live. I knew the second this came out of his mouth.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians.
I threw my hat and glasses off. I dropped to my knees. I grabbed my hair and went, no, 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 no way. There's no way this is happening in my parliament.
And continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
I lost all respect for every single politician in there, conservatives alike, all of them, because not a single one of them deserves to be in there if they have no idea of history. If you don't know your past, you have no right to lead us into the future. None, zero, nada.
His name is Yaroslav Hunka. And
I knew that name too. This is where I started to get sick and ran to the bathroom and puked my guts out. Because I know exactly his name. I even know the division.
I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing-Temiskaming.
Now, I'm not going to play any more of that. Again, I post the link below. You can watch it in its full. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. This is Krista Freeland when she was asked about it.
Secondly, on another topic, do you understand why it would be unsatisfying for many Canadians to be asked to believe that one person can direct a standing ovation in Parliament and at a time when we're supporting Ukraine and putting our own soldiers in danger in Eastern Europe?
What happened was completely unacceptable and a really damaging event for communities in Canada, particularly our Jewish community, and around the world, particularly for our friends in Ukraine.
The Jewish community? It wasn't just Jews that this man murdered, Christia. Oh, right. She knows this.
As the speaker said, he alone took this initiative, and neither the government of Canada nor the government of Ukraine was informed in advance. House leaders have been meeting to discuss the situation, and speaking now for myself as a member of parliament, because the speaker is chosen by members of parliament, and this is a parliamentary institution. But speaking for myself, I hope and believe that the speaker will reflect on how truly serious and damaging this error was, and will do the honorable thing. C'est vraiment une...
Yeah, sure, right.
Madam Freeland, the error committed last Friday, is it reparable?
We see what this can mean in terms of Canada's image abroad, and given your Ukrainian origins, what do you think we need to do to get out of this situation?
Comme j'ai juste dit.
As I just said, this really is
Beyond a regrettable and actually a terrible event, this is very difficult. It is very painful. I will start with Canadian communities. I think it's important to start with the Jewish community. We understand this, and that has to be said clearly here in Canada. You are right. This is also a painful and a difficult state of affairs internationally, especially for the courageous people of Ukraine. It is important for us as members of parliament. I'm speaking for myself and for all of us as members of parliament. It is important for us to do the right thing in our House of Commons. That is how we start repairing this major mistake.
Et on blâme qui là-dedans?
And who is to be blamed for this?
is Mr. Rhoda himself directly responsible for this? Do you blame anyone else?
Le président de la...
The Speaker of the House of Commons himself was quite clear. It was his decision, and he stated that he did not inform the government of Canada nor the government of Ukraine ahead of time.
Yeah, c'est première rangée.
First row.
Puis, le savoir.
Did you personally contact people in Ukraine at your level or others about this, and should there be an apology issued?
Well, think carefully.
C'est vraiment une grave erreur.
It is really a very serious and grave mistake, a very painful situation for us, and I think the question was the right one. We are Canadians. We need to start with Canadians, and for this reason, as far as I am concerned, I start by highlighting that this is a very difficult situation, that is a painful situation for the communities in Canada, specifically starting with the Jewish community.
Do you notice she's only with the Jewish community?
It is also a painful situation for the courageous people of Ukraine.
Courageous.
That we have supported and that we will continue to support. Our government, myself, and other people within government are in constant contact with the leaders of the government of Ukraine, and we will continue to be.
Right. Right.
On the what happened in the House on Friday, could you speak to the impact this has had on?
Look at gutless Fraser. Look at him. He wants nothing to do with this question. Nothing. This guy's a waste of skin too.
Ukrainian Canadians?
Destroys everything he touches.
What happened was really terrible and really damaging. It was damaging to communities across Canada, first and foremost.
Okay, I'll post the clips. I got so much to go over here. I'm also gonna put this in here. This is Michael Chomiak. His Wikipedia. Now, Chrystia Freeland's granddad was indeed a Nazi collaborator. So much for the Russian disinformation. The news conference on Monday by Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland was interesting. Not that the announcement for Canada was extending its training mission to Ukraine, but for the questions and answers about the minister's grandfather. There have been a number of articles circulating about Freeland's Ukrainian grandfather, Michael Chomiak, and his ties to the Nazis. Some of those articles have appeared on pro-Russian websites. Freeland, who strongly supports Ukraine and is a major critic of Russia's seizure of Crimea, suggested to journalists that the articles about her grandfather were part of a Russian disinformation campaign. Right. The Russian government sees Freeland as virulently anti-Russian and has placed her on a travel ban. American officials have publicly said that even Angela Merkel has publicly said that there were efforts on the Russian side to destabilize Western democracies, and I think it shouldn't come as a surprise if the same efforts were used against Canada, Freeland told reporters after they raised questions about the articles about her grandfather. The Globe and Mail also reported that an official in Freeland's office denied the minister's grandfather was a Nazi collaborator. In addition, the claims were dismissed outright by those in the Canadian-Ukrainian community. It is a continued Russian modus operandi that they have, Paul Grod, president of the Canadian-Ukrainian Congress, told the Globe and Mail. Fake news, disinformation, and targeting different individuals. It is just so outlandish when you hear some of these allegations, whether they are direct at Minister Freeland or others. Well, it actually isn't so outlandish. Michael Chomiak was a Nazi collaborator. Now, that's just a great article. Gonna post it on there. Let's get right down to the facts. This is an awesome little site, Dances with Bears by John Helmer. There is a pile of information on here. He's got it put together so nice and neatly. I don't even have to go in, try to sort my files and build this whole little thing together, because really, he's pretty much got it all right here. Michael Chomiak volunteered for Hitler before Ukraine was invaded and was hunted by the Polish police until the 1980s. Yes, he was. Chrystia Freeland's family lie grows bigger and blacker. German military records have been found in a Polish government archive in Warsaw revealing that Michael Chomiak, lead image to the left, maternal grandfather of Canadian Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland, volunteered to serve in the German invasion of Poland long before the German army attacked the Soviet Union and invaded Ukraine. Chomiak's records show he was trained in Vienna for German espionage and propaganda operations. Are you getting this, people? Then promoted to run the German press machine for the Galician region of Ukraine and Poland during the 4-year occupation. So high-ranking and active in the Nazi cause was Chomiak that the Polish intelligence services were actively hunting for Chomiak until the 1980s, without knowing he had fled for safety to an Alberta farm in Canada. Wonder whose money bought that farm. Would it be that out of the pockets of my ancestors? Your ancestors? Some Jews? Who else did they just, decide wasn't good enough for them. We're talking not tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands died because of this man. The newly disclosed documents expose Freeland's repeated lying that Chomiak had been a victim of World War II, an unwilling journalist overpowered by German military force, compelled to write propaganda extolling the German army's success and advocating the destruction of the Jews, Poles, and Russians. As for Freeland's claim that Chomiak had secretly aided the Ukrainian resistance, sources in Warsaw believe Chomiak was trained by the Germans as a double agent, penetrating Ukrainian groups and spying on them. The Polish records also point to the likelihood that U.S. Army, U.S. intelligence, and Canadian immigration records on Chomiak, concealed until now, can confirm in greater detail what Chomiak did during the war, as well as for years afterwards, which made him a target for the Polish police until not long before his death in 1984. Are you hearing this? Interesting, isn't it? Chomiak, in the picture, rear third from the left, at a party in Kraskow hosted by Emil Grasna. On the far right, chief spokesman for the German administration of occupied Poland and Ukraine, known as the General Government German and General Gubernator. Whatever, I don't speak that very well. Lots of pictures here, people. Lots of information. It's all here. The 14th Waffen SS Grenadier Division was formed by Heinrich Himmler in mid-1943 from 80,000 Ukrainian applicants. Just 13,000 were selected, and the rest were used to form police units and guards for the concentration camps. The destruction of the German armies around Stalingrad in early 1943 left the German forces in the Eastern Front severely undermanned. Chomiak's job included helping to raise the new force and ensure its recruits would remain loyal to the Nazis. For a background, check this out. Now, do you know why they only picked out of all of those people, only 13,000? Because it was their SS division. They needed a certain type of a person. Somebody who at instant command wouldn't hesitate and take another person's life. And also carry the same belief system as the Nazis. And these certain Ukrainians believed. These are the people that are still fighting today as they take people off the streets that don't want no part of this, as they take over anything that says Russian. They don't care. This whole war, again, watch the documentary. I tell you, it's going to open your eyes. As controversy has intensified in Canada over Freeland's cover-up of Chomiak, she's arranged for the parliamentary lobby for a reporter to ask the question Freeland's staff had planted. Recently, there has been a series of articles about you and your maternal grandparents making accusations that he was a Nazi collaborator in pro-Russian websites. Now, I'm going to read this one more time so you understand this. As controversy has intensified in Canada over Freeland's cover-up of Chomiak, she arranged in the Parliament lobby for a reporter to ask the question Freeland's staff had planted. Recently, there had been a series of articles about you and your maternal grandparents making accusations that he was a Nazi collaborator in pro-Russian websites. I'd like to get your view on, do you see this as a disinformation campaign by the Russians to try and smear you and discredit you, which they have a tendency to have done? In an answer, Freeland avoided the Chomiak evidence. Instead, she blamed Russian efforts to destabilize the U.S. and Canadian political systems. I am confident, Freeland declared on March 6, in our country's democracy, and I am confident that we can stand up to and see through those efforts. For the full story, click here. Okay. So we're going to click on that. I will add this. You can click on it. It's all on this website. On March 9th, Freeland was reported in the Washington Post is saying Russia should stop calling my grandfather a Nazi. In Warsaw, the file on Chomiak had been discovered, and the Institute of National Remembrance, IPN in the Polish acronym, which is part of the state's commission for the prosecution of crimes against the Polish nation. There are 4 items in the file which have been photographed and are published here for the first time. The IPN has tagged the Chomiak file number KR010/5606. These are the files, people. They're all right here. Now you got to understand, they were hiding senior people within the Nazi party. They were doing this on purpose because even our government, even though we ended up finally going and fighting, are you aware Canada was actually sending and helping that military with their arms, helium, all the rest of the things they needed, as well as the propaganda? We have to recognize our past. We need to bring the truth forward in order for us to really learn why we are in the state we are in today. Now, that article, I don't want to miss out on this. So scrolling down on this, I'm going to take you to the part that I'm going to, like, this is going to, oh man. Oh boy, are you guys going to learn some stuff today that I've already known, and this is why I totally see the propaganda. When you recognize the characters involved, everything seems to make sense. The campaign started at a press conference called by Freeland on March 6th in the lobby of the House of Commons in Ottawa. The purpose of the presser was to explain the official extension for another 2 years of Canada's Operation Unifier. That's the code name for what the Defense Ministry in Ottawa calls military training and capacity building assistance to Ukrainian forces personnel in support of Ukraine's efforts to maintain sovereignty, security, and stability. At the question and answer exchanges on March 6th, Freeland did all the talking. The Globe and Mail report of what was said, written by Robert Fife, the newspaper's Ottawa bureau chief, ignored the defense minister entirely. Above is the picture of the 2 ministers as Freeland addresses the question from the reporter to her right, who is visible to the camera. Sajin, circle 1, is on Freeland's left, his mouth shut. At the rear of the picture, in the center row of the reporters, the only male among them is Fife, circled to the right there in the back. In front of Freeland on the podium, but screened from the reporters present, Freeland's briefing book is visible, circled 3. The camera has picked up several script lines which Freeland and her staff had decided in advance that she would answer when asked. Below is the moment after Fife had asked Freeland the question. According to the newspaper version, he is tilting his head leftwards parallel with Freeland's tilt, and he has extended his arm with his recorder towards her as she answers. As she does so, Freeland looks directly at Fife. The state radio tape of what Freeland said can be listened to here. I'm going to click on this. Oh, CBC. Where is it? Are you seeing propaganda, people? They are hiding this. This is still out there. Oh, yes, it is. Another version from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reveals exactly what Fife asked Freeland. There's the transcript. Again, you're going to have the link. I've already copied. It doesn't matter. They're going to take this down. They are going to hunt for it, and they're going to take it down. They do not want you to know who the Liberal Party is. They do not want you to know who Freeland is. They don't want the truth out there. This isn't Canada, people. When you think about it, if we've been hiding these Nazis for how many generations and nothing's still been done about it, how deep do you think this really goes? How many people who have these feelings of hate, who do not want people like me on the planet or my ancestors, and yet they're in politics holding the most senior positions of government? Absolutely disgusting. And she's going to Ukraine? Are you kidding me? Moving on. Counterspin. New book on Freeland's grandfather reveals his Nazi past and role supporting the Holocaust. March 2017, a Globe and Mail journalist shook up the humdrum of the Ottawa political scene by asking Chrystia Freeland about her grandfather, Mikhailo Chomiak. Chomiak had come to Canada with his family after the Second World War, had been portrayed as a typical hard-working immigrant. But his past hid something a little more sinister. He had been the editor of a propagandist for the Nazis. Chomiak was in charge of the Kriegsvista, the anti-Semitic newspaper that promoted the Waffen-SS and denounced Jews. It also denounced other Ukrainians and Russians. And Poles, by the way. Freeland responded to the Globe reporter that claims about her grandfather were part of a disinformation plot by the Russians. An official in Freeland's office went on even further, telling the Globe that claimed Chomiak was a Nazi collaborator was a fabrication. Freeland supporters in the Canadian news media rushed to defend Chomiak. Paul Wells claimed that during the Second World War, two people in Europe led a double life, cooperating with the Nazis during the day of resisting them at night. Someone should have informed Wells about the tens of thousands of brave partisans living in the forests throughout Europe who fought the Nazis day and night. Terry Gavlin took a different angle, suggesting Freeland knew her grandfather was a collaborator, but added that Chomiak's involvement with the Nazis wasn't any big deal. Glavin claimed that even discussing the Chomiak issue was to support the Russians. This is what the Liberals have done. Before the Liberals came into power, we were finally starting to have an open dialogue, trade with Russia. Russia was becoming more and more democratic. There was a lot more shared opportunities between not just Canada and Russia, but Russia and the United States, Russia and Europe. There was a lot better trade. There was a lot more humanitarian openness between the nations. The second the Liberals got power, what did they do? They started to attack Russia. They did this for a reason. Now, I'm not no pro-Russian. Russia's got serious issues. Oh boy, do they ever. But what's being done to Canadians via propaganda and all of these cult liberals is disgusting. There are hundreds of thousands, in fact 1.8 million dead Ukrainians because of these people. And this picture isn't just hate over a certain culture, ethnic, religion, or area. This has now been taken over by conglomerates. The green climate agenda. It is globalists who are using all of these puppets, the Liberal Party here led by their general. By the way, I have, and it will be on Reality Revealed, my other site. I'm gonna record it tonight. I have found the actual Senate hearing, which, well, G. Vance and Mark Carney are all listed into for what they have done. Moving on. Despite Chrystia Freeland's denials, her grandfather was complicit in the Nazi genocide. This goes on to talk a little wee bit more about the book. Now, I want to go a little wee bit further and show you what... Well, first, let's just listen to Putin. Because, again, mainstream didn't show you this. The biggest kicker is this went global. All around the world that there was a Nazi in Parliament. It exposed Canada for what we really have in our Parliament. Now, I know Canadians deep down inside their heart don't believe, they don't want to believe. They don't want to believe that the Liberal Party has become what it has become. They are not the Liberal Party of before. This is why the real Liberals, people who actually study politics, people who read, look past disinformation, saw their party becoming and fled. Now listen carefully to what Putin had to say. And look at the crowd. The fact that everyone applauded this Nazi in Parliament is absolutely disgusting. especially the president of Ukraine, who has Jewish blood in his veins, who has Jewish roots, stands there and applauds a Nazi. Not just to some belated follower of Nazi ideology, but to a person who killed Jewish people with his own hands. It was him who personally killed Jews. If the Canadian Parliament Speaker says that the Canadian Ukrainian or Ukrainian Canadian Nazi fought against Russians during World War II, he cannot but understand that he fought on Hitler's side, not on the side of his motherland, Canada. Or was a fascist collaborationist. In any case, he was fighting on the side of Nazi troops. Let's say he does not know that. In no way do I want to hurt the feelings of the people of Canada. Despite everything, we treat Canada with respect, especially its people. But if he does not know that during World War II, it was Hitler and his minions who fought against Russians, then he's an idiot. That means he did not study in school, has no elementary knowledge. But if he knows that this person fought on Hitler's side and calls him a hero of Ukraine and a hero of Canada, then he's a bastard. It's one way or another. So now here's another great website that really breaks down a lot of information. Again, this is like, it's all here. There's lots of links. I hope you share far and wide. I hope Canada really needs to see this. They need to understand. There's still a division between Ukrainians. There are those swastikas tattooed on their sides. There are those who are very ethnically, we'll call it, you're pro-Ukrainian or you're a dead Ukrainian, as opposed to the Ukrainians who just don't really care. They're like, why? Why do you feel that way? We were part of Russia. We were part of, like, at what point? They were part of Poland. They were. This part isn't being talked about. And now, through talking with some teachers, I started to do a little bit of digging into curriculum. And of course, my curiosity, I stumbled upon where there's a lot of, like, history that's not being talked about in schools right now. They've twisted the version. We're now teaching Russian hate in our own schools. We are allowing our kids to learn this new ideology of a ethnically perfect Ukrainian, of a Nazi, a perfect German. This is total insanity, people. There's a pile of great links on here. The Liberal government's warm embrace of Ukraine's Nazi collaborators. By the way, there are military who came back. They were not impressed when they found out while they were there. They were training Nazis. Yes. Anyways, I'm going to move on and show you, well, again, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. And this is what fascists do. They like to erase history, especially their own mistakes. Listen carefully.
I would like to ask for unanimous consent to adopt the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, the recognition made by the Speaker of the House of an individual present in the galleries during the joint address to Parliament by His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky be struck from the appendix of the House of Commons debates of Thursday, September 21st, 2023, and from any House multimedia recording. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
They weren't trying to hide this to protect Canadians. They were doing it to hide what they did. They already had propaganda hiding it from Canadians. Ask your neighbor, ask your family, friends, aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents. Ask somebody on the bus. Did you know there was a Nazi in Parliament? You'd be surprised how few people know. Why? State-funded propaganda. And if it wasn't for good news outlets like this one, Rebel, and there is a few others, Juno and other people who have reported on this but just don't have, well, the state-funded outlets, the government money pushing their loudspeaker onto Canadians to get the word out. No, I don't. This is why I'm going to get nailed again. All of my videos get nailed. I watch views go up and down. I watch likes go up and down. I can chase my algorithms, and man, depending on certain, and of course, I don't believe in censorship. I believe I should have the same freedom as the news does. If they're putting their stuff on YouTube, I should be allowed to have the exact same privileges and rights. There should be no separation. None at all. In fact, I'm even better because I share all the information, the documents, the videos. I share everything in the description below. If there was ever to be any type of favoritism, which I don't believe in, shouldn't it be to the one who actually gives the hard evidence, shows you, gives you all the information? But no, I just want equality. Call me old stock. I want true freedom of speech, true freedom of dialogue. I want to have the ability to be able to have an equal platform. I don't have that. Now, look up communism, socialism, and fascism in the dictionaries, and you tell me which one best describes the Liberal Party we have today and what they have done through legislation. And you'll see why I use the word fascist. Now, we're not done. Listen to this.
Do want to reiterate, and as you have made very clear in your statement, Mr. Speaker, that this was your initiative. The Government of Canada had no knowledge of this individual coming to, the government had no knowledge. The Speaker is responsible for this chamber. He invited him of his own.
Now, she's saying the same thing Chrystia Freeland said. Lies, people. All lies.
Accord, and he made the decision himself to recognize him. Neither the Government of Canada nor the delegation of Ukraine had any knowledge of this. I would respectfully submit, Mr. Speaker, that you clarify this for the members opposite, because it's important that this information be clear and that these false allegations do not continue because they're not true.
Liberal MP Karina Gould was caught misleading about meeting with a Nazi in the Canadian Parliament. The Liberal government House leader, that's right, the Liberal government House leader, deleted an Instagram post where she is seen holding hands with the 98-year-old Ukrainian Yaroslav Hunka after news broke that Hunka was a member of the elite Nazi Waffen-SS during World War II. Gould had initially claimed no one from government met with Hunka, although pictorial, including an alleged meeting with the Prime Minister. Now, Hunka was brought as the Waffen-SS, really the Nazi death squad, were known for their fanaticism, brutality, and complete loyalty to Hitler. They were responsible for carrying out mass executions of Jews, Poles, Roma, and any political resistance to the Nazi genocide agenda. Now, Gould claimed in a post that no one knew Hunka would be in the Commons and that no one from the government had met with him. However, she, and I want to reiterate, as the government House leader, posted a picture to her Instagram account, happily clutching the hand of the geriatric genocide heir. Gould has since expressed her dismay at Speaker of the House Anthony Rota for bringing Hunka into the Parliament. Gould claimed she trusted Rota to vet the guest. Admission from Gould poses new questions. Why didn't she know better? Why doesn't she know that anyone fighting the Russians was fighting on the side of the Nazis? And why hasn't Gould resigned in disgust? Disgust with her own party, but also disgust with herself for applauding him. Now, Rhoda has since apologized, but has faced no real consequences for his role in the
And that's the question. Why? Because she's incompetent. She doesn't even care about her own family history. She doesn't understand her own family history. Do you blame... Who do you blame? Who do you blame? Now, I know a lot of people, they've moved on. They're not aware of their family history. It happens. But you'd think there would have been a little wee bit learnt through school that might have, triggered some type, maybe one little brain molecule. The vapid inside of her head doesn't have any. These people they don't care about you. They're there for the checks. They're there for their own ideology. They have no idea of their past. They have no idea of what's happening today. And they sure as shit don't want a free future. They have their own utopia planned for you. And again, previous episode, the Liberal Party is literally driving us into the dystopia that we were warned about in a few papers. I'll post those links on here as well. This is total insanity. Now, how do you know? How do you know you live in a world run by fascists, by propaganda? I'm going to show you. Listen carefully.
I hesitate to... I don't want to say that necessarily because the media has an important role, and I'm not trying to skirt the question. The media can provide editorials, and editorial boards can have stances. I believe that a lot of people were making assertions that weren't accurate, and if they were based in investigation and in fact, then there was information that I was not privy to, and I wondered why. And I accept that I might not be privy to it. If the Communications Security Establishment of Canada or the Canadian Security Intelligence Service or the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team has received information at a classification above my level, I accept that, and that's fine. I'm just saying that from my perspective, as operational command of Hendon and that joint force operation, I did not see information that substantiated what was being said publicly and via the media. And I found that the subjective assertions sensationalized, yes, and exacerbated conflict.
Now, who was that? Well, that was Superintendent Pat Morris, head of the Ontario Provincial Police, Provincial Operations Intelligence Bureau. He testified about intelligence gathered during the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa. Morris emphasized that the OPP intelligence found no credible evidence of threats to national security, extremism, foreign influence, e.g., Russian or American sources, or Donald Trump, or plans for violence. He described the lack of violent crime as shocking, noting that most charges were against police officers rather than protesters. He also dismissed reports of armed protesters as hyperbole and confirmed that elements like honking, open fires, or fringe participants did not meet the threshold of threats. This has been going on, and people are brainwashed. Like I said on many episodes, there are people out there that actually think that the Freedom Convoy was some hate-filled racist group, when in reality, in actuality, it was real Canadians. A collection of tons of different cultures, religions, ethnicities, languages, all with one goal: to try to wake Canada up. The horn honking was there to try to get the news to pick it up. That's why they did it, because mainstream was hiding it from Canadians. The world was talking about it, the internet was on fire, but propaganda was stopping Canadians from hearing about it. So what did the Liberals do? They stuck their propaganda machine in sixth gear. They sicked them on them like a rabid dog and spread nothing but fear, hate, and division. But don't worry, it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. Blacklocks, teen, TikTok users were targeted. the federal government paid researchers to develop attention-grabbing TikTok videos for 13-year-olds. An access to information records show a machine learning algorithm targeting teenagers was financed under a program approved by then Democratic Institutions Minister, who? Karina Gould. A machine learning algorithm. Think carefully about that. Now I want you to listen.
And I guess they're trying to improve things by, what are they using taxpayer money to use TikTok to get a hold of 13-year-olds? They're trying to build their future here?
Unbelievable access to information records we see at Toronto Metropolitan University. They paid a fortune, over $280,000 to researchers. What did they do with the money? This was under the guise of a federal program against disinformation. Who's going to argue with that, Jerry? That's like arguing against mother or apple pie. No one likes disinformation. But there was some, forgive me, some cynical and conniving research that occurred under this program, and this was one. Over $250,000. And they had researchers...
This was just one of the propaganda brainwashing. They were using TikTok and other social media. It's funny how I see so many ads for liberals and for the government policies on all of these social media outlets. Isn't that strange?
Find out what kind of TikTok videos the kids like. Do they like it with this kind of music or that kind of narration? And then once they had that data, they actually scraped data on TikTok. Then they wanted to come up with their own manipulative messages that would get the kids susceptible to vague government messaging. What kind of messages? They didn't say in a project summary released through Access to Information, but they stated, and I quote them accurately, a machine learning algorithm will be coming out soon, end of quote. Jerry, Facebook does that, but they just want to sell me a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
What would the government of Canada's interest be in their project summary in targeting 13-year-olds?
Well, 13 to 16 is...
They're doing it. Just like Trudeau, the We Charity, the school system, they're brainwashing them young. Look at what happened to Charlie Kirk, people. Look at what happened to the whole LGBTQ rest of the alphabet squad. Are you seeing this? This is insanity. And then I'm going to post these perfect, beautiful links. Now, please don't go out there and vandalize these memorials. I knew when I was young and when I was studying, learning about this part of the history with my family, and I started to actually uncover who was responsible for it. I had a remarkable teacher. That teacher, we had to walk past this certain area, and he would look at me and he knew that I knew. He knew my brain was onto this. And he was a great teacher. He knew I was intellectual. He knew I was curious of history. He didn't want to stifle that. He did what good teachers do. He allowed me the ability and showed me where to go and how to access and find the types of information I needed in order for me to quench the thirst of knowledge that I had. In doing so, I found one of these monuments, and I knew right away who it was. Now please, don't go out and vandalize them. Get your communities to understand what they are and what they really mean. Let's get started. Memorials in Canada to Nazis and Nazi collaborators. This is on Wikipedia. I'll post it. You can follow it. Monument honoring 4 Estonian Waffen SS leaders at Sidiru summer camp. The memorial to the victims of communism. Memorial in Ottawa. The Draska Mihailovic statue in Hamilton. The Ukrainian Waffen SS Insurgent Army. Here we go. Ready? Roman Shukiewicz statue in Edmonton. This is an evil man. He collaborated with the Nazis. Commanding officer of the Neshkrel battalion. People actually walk by this and have no idea who this person is. But this is brainwashing, because they will see it, they might recognize the name, it gets put in the back of their head, and if there's a statue, he's a good thing. No, he's not. He is not a good thing. These are people that should never have the right to have a place in society where there is any chance of them being promoted in a good way. Evil begets evil. The memorial at St. Michael's Cemetery in Edmonton. Who fought for Ukraine's freedom against the Russians. 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS. The 1st Galatian. You catching on to this? The memorial at St. Vladimir Ukraine Cemetery in Oakville. This one has been removed. Now, take a very close look at the symbols on these, would you? I've talked about this in previous episodes. These are the badges worn by senior officials in the Ukraine military. Yes, Nazis do exist in Ukraine. You are being played, people. They have set war upon the people, promoting the most evil goddamn humans on the planet who wish to do harm to other people just because they speak a different language, have a different religion, or have a different color. This is hate. They're using this. Why? To take control. It's not just one country. They want the resources around the world. This is much bigger than just Christia. She is but a pawn. But guess what? If her name was on that list, they knew she was going to be somebody that was going to help these businesses move in and take over the resources in Ukraine. Why? And who is she working for, and who appointed her that position? Carney, one of the heads of the snake of the global cabal. People, this isn't little. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is reality. This is the truth. Sorry, so sorry. Just the truth. Just the facts. If you don't believe me and you live in these cities, take a walk and go look at them, please. No violence. Don't try and smash them or paint them. Don't do that. That's not what good people do. What good people do is you do like what I'm doing. You put your face and your voice out there. You do like what Charlie Kirk did. Even though, like I said before, I didn't believe everything he said. It's the idea of debate, of conversation, the freedom to exchange information in order to prove or push a point across, to have a resolution made. Without resolution, we are going to keep repeating the same thing over and over. That evil woman is going to Ukraine. She's going to my ancestors' homeland with one ideology in mind. Sacrifice as many as you can for the global elite and for your own agenda. Sorry, my voice is quivering. I'm going to cry. I'm just sick to the stomach. Let's keep going. Streets and parks named after Alexis Carrel. Landmarks named after Charles Badeau. Here's at the time when Wikipedia was made, some of them that had been removed. They're all on here. We're a cesspool for this people. You can thank propaganda. They've had generations to put this front and center and give justice to those oppressed, murdered, exiled, robbed, beat. But they don't. Instead, they promote whatever it is they need to get an agenda across. Black Lives Matter burns down cities. Charlie Kirk followers have vigils. See the difference? understand the difference. And it's not conservative versus liberal anymore. The Liberal Party is not the Liberal Party anymore. They're gone. They don't exist. The Conservative Party of today is more liberal than the Liberal Party of today is. The Liberal Party of today is a cult. There is no real Conservative Party left in Canada. We've allowed the media to shapeshift us, to completely transform us. We've allowed the education system to do the same. They have infiltrated every part of our society, and they are working for a grand agenda. And it's been changing over the years, and what was once the Laurentian elite then became the global cartel. The IMF is involved. This is huge, people. If you really want to gain your sovereignty, you have to recognize your past. And only then will the perpetrators of who are trying to destroy our future actually come to light, and you can recognize them. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out. There is going to be a pile of documents and websites and videos, as always, in the description below. We are falling into the abyss. They want you to hate. They want you to be afraid. They want chaos. We need to come together. After what just happened, and now George Soros and his family are on the chopping block, thank God. Another Nazi collaborator who made his fortune off of dead people. Yeah, again, every time his name is mentioned, they should bring this up. He should have gave up every penny he had, his family fortune, the entirety, and started fresh if he was really sorry for what he did. But he didn't. He's out spending money on Antifa, back doors. Yes, he was part of the same people that were activists, that were fighting against, what? Western oil. It's one great big party, and none of us are invited. Unless you got a few $1 million and you're willing to sell your soul. Which Canada, the Canadians I know, refuse to. We will fight tooth and nail to the bitter end. For goodness, for equality, for the right to speak, for the right to actually do good. That's what it is to be Canadian, and we really need to get it back. Until next time, you guys, I'm Alias to Guy, Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.